the title of my talk was Demonstrations, Prohibited and Not Prohibited. And it's going to update and expand two articles that appeared in this week's Workers' World, one by John Catalanato and the other by me. The difference between a public opinion poll of viewpoints and a demonstration. That's important. A demonstration is a material act, putting a body in a place with other bodies. It has a physical force and can lead to physical consequences, like an occupation. Hundreds of demonstrations called by thousands of organizations with no coordination between them, but obviously in response to the Israeli assault on Gaza, do clearly indicate a worldwide rejection of the Israeli position, its siege of Gaza, and its denial of the right of the nation of Palestine to exist. As Comrade John points out in his article, quote, "The real international community is coming out into the streets to show its solidarity with Gaza and Palestine and protest, and that so much more clearly than any public opinion poll." I thought that this was important. Here is a list of the countries that John Catalanato put together and the demos that took place. Istanbul and Ankara, Turkey. Manila, the Philippines. Mumbai, Ahmedabad, and other cities in India. Srinagar in Indian-ruled Kashmir. Seoul, South Korea. Beijing, China. Jakarta, Indonesia. Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban in South Africa. Rabat in Morocco. In Tunis, Tunisia. In Cairo, Egypt. Athens, Greece. Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Vienna, Austria. Berlin and Frankfurt, Germany. Copenhagen, Denmark. And Stockholm, Malmo, and 6 other cities in Sweden. Brussels in Belgium, and in cities all across the Spanish nation. London, England. Dublin and Derry in Ireland. A lot. I would add Islamabad, Quetta, and Lahore in Pakistan. Algiers in Algeria. Beirut in Lebanon. Tokyo, Yokohama in Japan. Rome in Italy. Marseille, Strasbourg, Lille, and Paris in France. And I just got something about a demonstration in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Ramallah in Palestine, where 50,000 Palestinians marched and struggled with the Israeli border police and cops last night. And the El Quds demonstration that many people here, including me, took part in this afternoon, that's now marching over to the Israeli consulate, but is also taking place in 19 cities in North America and around the world. That's a lot. Now, 51 communist parties, reflecting and perhaps preparing to mold public opinion, signed a statement condemning crimes against the Palestinian people and calling for an end to the air raids, withdrawal of the Israeli army, freedom for all political prisoners, and respect of the UN's resolution ensuring Palestinians' right to return. And that's a pretty moderate stand, but I think it it would take almost an overthrow of the Israeli government to take place. Now, Google News has over 12,000 articles on pro-Palestinian demos throughout the world, indexed. So we don't obviously, John and I didn't obviously look at them all, or even a large portion of them, and we certainly missed demonstrations. But the main point, people throughout the world acted to say Israel and its main backer, the United States, must stop the attacks, end the siege, and recognize the right of Palestine to exist. And that point remains valid. Now I'd like to say something about France. France is a country whose National Day, July 14th, Bastille Day, commemorates a march on a notorious feudal prison called the Bastille and its destruction. And then there were the July days in 1830, where 3 days of demonstrations and marches and street protests led to the abdication of the utterly reactionary Charles X. I could say more about him, but I won't. And a protest of 500,000 French people, after several demonstrations had been brutally and bloodily suppressed, impelled the French government to end the war to retain Algeria. Demonstrations and protests are much more a normal and important part of French politics than they are here. It's nothing to see, well, not nothing, but I've seen demonstrations of 5,000 and 10,000 doctors and nurses in the Paris streets. And 1 week I spent in Paris, there were 10 big demonstrations. That's over 2,000 people in that week. That's why when the prefect of Paris, who is in charge of the cops, banned the pro-Palestinian protest with the support of the French President François Hollande, it was major news both in France and the U.S. and Great Britain. The supposed reason for the ban was an attack led by the Ligue de France Juive, LDJ, on 30,000 people in a pro-Palestinian demonstration on July 13th. The LDJ was initiated by Meir Kahane, the founder of the JDL in the U.S. in the early 80s. Maybe I could be off on that, but I know that the JDL physically attacked meetings and demonstrations of YORF, at that time the youth wing of Workers' World Party. Still, 8,000 to 10,000 people marched in this banned demonstration and fought with the cops in the street. And that's in Workers' World this week, so you can check out the details. In the public debate that followed, the new anti-capitalist party, their spokeswoman, and I emphasize spokeswoman because everybody else on the TV was male, and she was a woman of color, not only made the point that this ban was undemocratic, but that no other country in the world had imposed such a ban. And that's why this worldwide protest, for example, was very useful in France. The ban was lifted, François Hollande backed down, and he had to back down because the demonstration would have taken place anyway, and it would have been bigger, and it was a march of 15,000 people in Paris Wednesday night. There are major tensions in France between the North African Muslims, Arabs and Berbers, who support Palestine and face a deep, harsh, and extremely racist oppression. And the North African Jews, the Sephardic, who are fanatical supporters of Israel, and that some of that came out in the struggle in this small city called Sarcelles, which is run by has a Sephardic mayor and a Sephardic city council. But anyway, I could say much more about it, but I don't want to go over my time, so that's it. Thank you very much.